Hello there, very good evening and welcome to the news at 6 where we get you the day's top developing stories. I'm Tracy Shilshi and let's start with the headlines. Amid mounting student protests, Hyderabad University reinstates suspended Dalit students, but pressure mounts on HRD Minister Smriti Irani as Dalit faculty accuses her of making misleading statements. Probing the Pathankot attack, the National Investigation Agency conducts raids in 6 places across the state. Government unveils plans to fight the crisis on the pulses front. Food Minister Ramvilas Paswan says 45 lakh tons will be imported to meet domestic demand. Sensex ends below the 24,000 mark after over 20 months. Sheds 100 points to close at 23,900 after persistent selling in the Asian shares. And at the World Economic Forum in Davos, despite falling exports, volatile currencies and stock market jitters, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley says that India can achieve 8 to 9% growth. Top story this evening. Food Minister Ramvilas Paswan claims that production of pulses will increase only marginally up this year. But in order to meet the supply of the supply crisis, the government will instead take a recourse to imports, to meet the demand. He also allayed fears that the sugar output will be enough to cater to the domestic demand.
Food Minister Ramvilas Paswan on Thursday blamed a demand-supply mismatch for the crisis in pulses. He said the government will import about 45 lakh tons in order to meet the rising domestic demand. Pulse production is likely to be around 175 lakh tons this year, 3 lakh tons less than last year. Demand, however, is expected to be 235 lakh tons.
शुरू में ही इंपोर्ट हो जाने से मार्केट में पैनिक नहीं फैलता है और भी आवश्यकता और भी क्या कहते हैं कि इसमें होगा। इसके अलावा सरकार ने अपने से भी जो है अलग से जो है बफर स्टॉक जो है बनाया है और उसके लिए जो है 1.5 लाख 1.5 लाख टन का बफर स्टॉक जो है वो बफर का लक्ष्य है.
Paswan allayed fears that a deficient monsoon will cause shortages in sugar production. He said cane arrears had dropped to 27 billion rupees from 210 billion rupees in April 2015.
अप्रैल में 21,000 करोड़ गन्ना किसान का बकाया था. आज के डेट में 2700 करोड़ रुपया जो है 25 केवल 2,500 करोड़ रुपया बचा है. और जो चीज हम लोगों ने जो है गन्ना किसान को मिल मालिक को राहत दिया था, चाहे इंपोर्ट ड्यूटी का मामला हो, एक्सपोर्ट इंसेंटिव का मामला हो, इथेनॉल का मामला हो या मान लेते हैं कि सॉफ्ट लोन का मामला हो, इसका फायदा जो है किसान को हुआ है.
According to the Union Minister, the National Food Security Act will cover the entire nation by March 2016. So far, around 25 states are implementing the act, while the rest will join by March this year. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And talking about markets, for the first time in 20 months, the BSE benchmark Sensex sinked below the 24,000 mark. Through the day, it lost 100 points. This is the first below 24,000 closing since May 15, 2014. The BSE Sensex closed at 23,962.21, bogged down by persistent selling in Asian shares following a fresh dip in oil prices. The broader NSE Nifty also broke down the 7,300 mark, ending at 32 points down or 0.44% lower at 7,276. This is its lowest closing since May 30th, 2014. The rupee also fell, fueling the markets to fall further. The rupee breached the 68 mark against the dollar. Crude oil also resumed its slide from $28 a barrel to hit fresh multi-year lows. In fact, talking about those Asian shares, they are closing lower, of course, with the Shanghai index plunging 3.23%, Japan's Nikkei ending 2.43% lower, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng index losing 1.82%. However, European shares rose after the region's stocks fell the most of yesterday since August last year. In more news, 4 days after the suicide by Rohit Vemla, the University of Hyderabad finally lifted the suspension on 4 Dalit students who was suspended along with him. The incident that sparked outrage across the nation also led to a political war of words between the government and the opposition. Here are more developments.
Despite the HRD Ministry's clarification on Wednesday, Dalit faculty members threatening to quit their administrative positions at the Hyderabad University.
Smriti Irani, the HRD Minister yesterday, rather resolving the issue and be sensitive and human, but she started speaking lies. She's saying that there was Dalit professor who was headed the investigation team of subcommittee of Executive Council, which is blatantly a lie. That's the reason the Dalit professors tended to resign, because she is misquoted.
Students said they planned to enlist support from campuses across the country to expand their protest against what they called misrepresenting facts in Rohit Vemula's suicide case. Various political parties also expressed support for their protests.
कल स्मृति ईरानी जी का जो बयान था, वो बयान घोर शर्मनाक बयान है। जिस तरह से उन्होंने इस पूरे के पूरे मामले को दलित वर्सेस नॉन दलित बनाने की कोशिश की, उन्होंने झूठ पे झूठ बोलने की कोशिश की।
Members of the Dalit faculty issued a statement that said an upper caste professor Vipin Srivastava took out the decision to suspend the students. They even pointed out that no Dalit representation had in fact been given representation in the Executive Council of the University of Hyderabad.
Why we cannot accommodate ideas which are different from us? Why we cannot accommodate people who have a different set of belonging identity than what we have? I think it's a failure not only of the government, it's a failure of us as a nation.
Just an allegation unnecessarily. Congress is resorting to a politics of vendetta. They are sensationalizing this suicide of a Dalit boy. They are communalizing, they are trying to divide the society.
Later in the afternoon, the university revoked the suspension of the 4 Dalit students who were suspended along with V. Rohit.
और दलित सेना जो हमारी पार्टी का एक बहुत ही मजबूत प्रकोष्ठ है, उसके राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष रामचंद्र पासवान जी, इनके नेतृत्व में एक डेलीगेशन कल हमारे राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष के आदेश पर हैदराबाद सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी गया था। वहाँ पे इन्होंने छात्रों से मुलाकात की और लोक जनशक्ति पार्टी शुरू से ही ये बात कहती रही है कि ये एक अनऑफिशियल इन्वेस्टिगेशन है जो हमारी पार्टी की तरफ से एक टीम गई है, बट हम लोग चाहते हैं कि इसकी एक निष्पक्ष और स्वतंत्र एजेंसी से इसकी पूरी जांच की जाए।
Executive Committee under the chairmanship of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Appa Rao, convened a meeting and they have taken a decision to revoke the suspension of these students completely. Now other demands are there, other demands will be discussed with the student leaders.
Meanwhile, ABVP leader Nandanam Sushil Kumar, who was named as an accused, demanded a fair inquiry into the incident and denied that he had lied about being manhandled by Rohit and other students of Ambedkar Students Association on August 3rd last year. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
For more on this story, we're joined now by correspondent Vishal Dahiya from the newsroom. He's, of course, been tracking all the political action as well on this, because a lot of it, of course, that we've been seeing in the past few days. Vishal, those 4 students, those research scholars, their suspension being revoked, but clearly this is not going to calm them down. A lot of pressure definitely on Smriti Irani.
Well, yes, indeed, the decision has been taken to, revoke the suspension of those 4 students. But if you look at the entire political situation, which is now evolved 3 days after that incident has happened, yesterday an effort was made by the government when they fielded the Union Minister for HRD, Smriti Irani, along with 2 other ministers, Thawarchand Gehlot and Nirmala Sitharaman, wherein the government put forth its point of view. In fact, it was HRD Minister Smriti Irani which spoke in that press conference and gave all the facts she had from the university passed on to the HRD Ministry. But it seems that yesterday's clarification seems to have, failed to calm down these protesters, failed to, rebut the allegations which were coming in from the political parties, the opposition parties specifically. And it seems right now that the opposition has consolidated on this issue, because the kind of demands which have been coming in from the political parties, opposition parties, despite the fact that they have their own differences. For example, the Congress party on the first day itself had sought in resignations of the Union HRD Minister and the Labour Labor Minister. They, repeated that demand today, and that same demand was repeated by the Aam Aadmi Party convener Arvind Kejriwal, who is also the Delhi Chief Minister. Yes. So, and other political parties, including the allies of the BJP in the NDA. For example, LJP, we saw them asking for a separate probe yesterday. We saw them asking for a separate probe today as well. So it seems the discontent is increasing not only, outside the ruling alliance, but inside the ruling alliance as well. And this is something which obviously the ruling party and the strategist of the ruling party would want to, take on immediately and try and calm down the tempers before it becomes real political trouble for them.
Absolutely. And very quickly, Vishal, if you're getting any information on what the government is now planning to do. You are, of course, talking about how they're going to strategize. They're going to see how to calm the students down, not just them, but even the opposition as well. Would they perhaps wait it out for this issue to die down eventually, or would we be seeing some crucial steps being taken quickly?
Well, eventually this seems to be the strategy, because if you look at yesterday's press conference, the HRD minister had clearly pointed out on behalf of the government that since the matter is sub judice and there is a police inquiry which is also underway, it would not be proper for the government or any the minister to put forth their viewpoint on the entire incident. But then several other facts which led to this incident were put in public domain by the HRD minister, and that strategy seems to have not worked for the government. Yeah, so obviously it seems right now the government would definitely want to wait a little while and see which way the political wind is blowing, and then maybe once the judicial decision is out or the police inquiry is completed, then maybe take some action further going ahead.
Absolutely. We'll leave it there for now. Vishal, thanks so much for joining us on this story. We'll keep an eye on all developments there. Meanwhile, in another crucial story, the NIA today conducted searches at 5 places, including the office and residences of Punjab Police SP Salvinder Singh and his friends as part of its investigations into the Pathankot terror attack. Singh's residences in Amritsar and Gurdaspur were searched by NIA officials. The Gurdaspur office of the SP and the residence of his jeweler friend Rajesh Verma were also searched by the NIA probe agents. The developments came after Salvinder Singh's interrogation by the NIA for several days in Delhi. Singh underwent a lie detector test on Wednesday as part of the probe into the attack on the Air Force base in Pathankot. He will further be subjected to behavioral tests. The NIA is questioning Singh to ascertain the sequence of events that took place after he was allegedly kidnapped on the intervening night of the 31st December and the 1st of January by the terrorists. Singh came under the scanner after giving conflicting statements. Meanwhile, severe cold wave conditions continue to rattle the northern part of the country. Rail traffic has been severely affected as dense fog makes an appearance again. Icy winds are making matters worse. Here's a report.
People across the northern states are battling icy winds as normal life is thrown out of gear due to a severe cold wave and a thick blanket of fog. Poor visibility due to the fog has hit vehicular movement, making it difficult for children as they head to school.
बच्चे को बहुत ठंड लग रही है, छोटे बच्चे के लिए तो बहुत परेशानी हो गई है. They can't wake up early in the morning. स्कूल आने का मन नहीं कर रहा है और स्ट्रेंथ भी कम है, इसलिए टीचर्स को भी परेशानी हो रही है.
The cold winds coming from the northwest have dropped temperatures further. Fresh snowfall and hailstorms in Shimla are forcing people to stay indoors. Road and rail traffic has also been affected.
बहुत ज़्यादा ठंड है, कोहरे से बहुत परेशान है. इसी चक्कर में गाड़ी भी यहाँ कोई नहीं आ पा रही है और काफ़ी लोग भी कल भी इस गाड़ी के चक्कर में काफ़ी लोगों ने नौकरी से हाथ धो बैठा है और गाड़ी भी समय पर नहीं आ पा रही है. इस कोहरे के चक्कर में सारी गाड़ियाँ लेट चल रही हैं.
Snowfall in states like Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh has a direct impact on the temperatures in other northern states like Punjab, Haryana, Delhi and Uttar Pradesh. Meanwhile, the Met Department has predicted cold wave conditions to continue over the next week as well, attributing it to the northwesterly winds. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's get you some more updates from across the country in Nationwide. The CIA will join the French security personnel in helping Indian agencies provide security to French President François Hollande. Hollande is the chief guest of this year's Republic Day parade in New Delhi. A ground-to-air security cover will be in place in Delhi on the occasion. The CBI moved the Delhi High Court today against a trial court's verdict asking it to return documents seized by it during raids at the office of Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's Principal Secretary Rajendra Kumar. The High Court refrained from granting a stay after the AAP government opposed any interim order on the petition. Legendary Bharatanatyam dancer Mrinalini Sarabhai passed away this morning in Ahmedabad. The 97-year-old was reportedly suffering from an infection. Besides being a classical dancer, Mrinalini was a poet, writer and environmentalist. She played a leading role in the social and arts scenario in Ahmedabad and was one of the first classical dancers to turn to choreography. With that, a quick break here. More news follows. Stay with us.
Sensex at 20-month low. Rupee weakens to 68 to a dollar. Crisis situation or an opportunity? What are the wider implications? Watch the big picture at 6:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley today expressed hope that India can achieve 9% economic growth rate in a global, friendlier climate. Speaking at the World Economic Forum meeting at Davos on Wednesday, Jaitley cautioned that volatility had become a global norm and no country can remain insulated from it.
The bright spot in the global economy could do better, feels the finance minister. Despite falling exports, volatile currencies and jittery stock markets, Arun Jaitley feels India can clock 8 to 9% growth. The finance minister said the fundamentals of the economy remain strong, but asserted that 2 years of weak monsoons and several indigenous and global factors impacted economic progress.
The reality is that even if we are the fastest growing amongst the major economies, we all feel we can do much better. That fastest is still not good enough for India. I think our real potential is 1.5% over and above that.
Jaitley also said the global market volatility is here to stay and that no nation can be immune to the crisis.
Earlier, the world lived with a situation where after a couple of years, you could see a challenge or a crisis. But today, volatility seems to be the norm. And therefore, we have to live in that. And no country, including India, can say we are immune from it.
The finance minister emphasized that it was wrong to say the government was exploiting lower global oil prices and claimed that the cut in oil subsidy has only helped the government replan its expenditure. He also underscored that rationalization of subsidies was one of the biggest reforms that has taken place. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha television.
And staying with Davos, the World Economic Forum today discussed Europe's refugee crisis. German President Joachim Gauck hinted at a shift in Germany's open door policy. He said that limiting refugee numbers could be necessary and not per se unethical. Leaders also expressed concern of the tumbling global oil prices and falling shares. Here's more.
The spiraling migrant crisis became the hot topic of discussion at the first day of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Shared the burden in the refugee crisis was Serbia's clear message for its Eastern European neighbors. The German Vice-Chancellor said countries taking in migrants need to be more realistic about the challenges. Jordan said it was willing to set up special economic zone for refugees. Jordan is home to nearly 1.3 million Syrian refugees.
We need comprehensive and decisive solution. What we're going to do? Otherwise, we'll face terrible political, economic and all the other problems in an entire Europe.
Mit der Aufnahme von Flüchtlingen, die wir übrigens aufnehmen, erstmal, weil sie in Not sind, nicht so sehr in erster Linie, weil sie unser Land voranbringen können. Das hoffentlich tun sie auch irgendwann.
Falling global markets and tumbling oil prices also became a cause of worry at the World Economic Forum. After Wednesday's fall, the European markets opened at a slightly higher note on Thursday. Over 2,500 leaders from various fields like business, government, international organizations are in Davos to discuss the impact of changing technology and political shifts on society and world's economy. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's give you some more international news updates in Global Buzz. The United States, France and other allies agreed to step up their fight against the Islamic State in the coming months. In fact, in the coming weeks, the coalition will be looking to push IS out of Raqqa in Syria and Mosul in Iraq. US officials are arming a group known as the Syria Arab Coalition that's now fighting the militants in Syria. An earthquake measuring 6.4 on the Richter scale hit northwest China's Qinghai province on Thursday morning. As of now, no casualties were reported, but 40 buildings were destroyed. Armed police and rescue teams have been mobilized to search for missing and injured residents. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon today condemned the terrorist attack at the Bacha Khan University in Pakistan. Terrorists killed at least 20 people and wounded dozens more. In addition, the Secretary General called for proportionate measures to ensure that schools are adequately protected. European markets opened slightly higher a day after global turmoil saw billions wiped off the value of shares. London's benchmark FTSE 100 share index was up by 0.5% in the opening minutes. Investors, however, remained worried over the continuing slide in oil prices and slowing growth in China. Without a quick break here, up next we're getting you sports news. Stay with us.
The Nobel Prize, because of the statutes, is only given to 3 people. The Nobel Committee spends a lot of time thinking about it and figuring out which were the key ideas that made something happen. And the more the science is, rapidly communicative, the more these controversies will happen. Do not do anything you're not interested in, because you will never do well.
Watch Eureka with Nobel laureate Professor Venkatraman Ramakrishnan only on Rajya Sabha television.
Some sports news now, starting with tennis. And Andy Murray nullified the most powerful serve in the game as the world number 2 beat Sam Groth at the Australian Open. Gabin Muguruza and Victoria Azarenka also eased through to the third round on Thursday. Two-time Grand Slam champion Murray, who went slam-less last year, did not give Groth a game in the first set, winning 6-love, 6-4, 6-1 in an hour and 29 minutes. He will now face João Sousa of Portugal in the third round. French Open champion Stan Wawrinka, who won the Australian Open in 2014, also reached the third round with a 6-2, 6-3, 6-4 win over 37-year-old qualifier Radek Stepanek. In the women's singles, Victoria Azarenka and Gabin Muguruza continued their sizzling form by scorching through the second round, moving a step closer to a potential last 16 showdown. Azarenka was almost clinical in a 6-1, 6-2 thrashing of Montenegro's Danga Kovinic. Spanish third seed Muguruza also eased past Kirsten Flipkin's 6-4, 6-2 to move into the third round. And now let's get you some more sporting action in Sports Beat. Top Indian shuttlers PV Sindhu and Kidambi Shrikant stormed into the pre-quarterfinals of the Malaysia Masters Grand Prix. Sindhu thrashed Switzerland's Sabrina Jacquet 21-17, 21-16 in the women's singles first round. Shrikant brushed aside Christy Jonathan of Indonesia to make it to the round of 16. Ajay Jairam and doubles pair of Jwala Gutta and Ashwini Ponappa also reached the pre-quarterfinal. Indian squash player Deepika Pallikal moved into the semi-finals of the Granite Open Squash Tournament after a convincing win over Egyptian Salma Hani Ibrahim. Deepika, who was the last year runner-up at the tournament, defeated her 27th ranked opponent 12-10, 11-2, 11-4 in the quarterfinals. Barcelona defeated Athletic Bilbao 2-1 in the Copa del Rey quarterfinal first leg. The defending champions, who were out without Lionel Messi and suspended Luis Suarez, swept into a 2-goal lead inside the first 25 minutes with goals from Munir El Haddadi and Neymar. Bilbao pulled a goal back in the final minutes. In another match, Atletico Madrid held to a goalless draw by Celta Vigo. And that's all we have for you on News at 6. Thanks so much for joining us.